Welcome to our lovely future humans, to our 5D collective. To those who are new, we have a bit of a late IHP show. Depends what time it is where you are at, but emotional mastery is really fun. It makes you reliable, makes you intelligent, helps you to notice what emotionally immature and that's unhealthy stuff. We're gonna get to that at some other point. No, I shared with you a couple shorts today. You can go check them out. But yeah, the part of what I got to learn today from a number of different sources is it's amazing to be able to be part of our 5D collective, because with the emotional resilience works, the work that you do, that's why you're a self-master, you're going to get to have a fun time as the ones who want to ignore this aspect of being able to be resilient with good stress. Okay, so good stress is eustress. And I found out that everything that I was using prior still is applicable. It just has a lot more depth and meaning, because I know that going with the flow is like every human being's potential. And so we bring our A game, which is why, as this lovely man points out, there's nothing more terrible than to see ignorance in action. Thank you, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. He also says, dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of men. I love it. And as he continues, this one was really funny because it makes me think of every adaptive child part out there. So people who are leading with emotional immaturity, the masked performance is because we will know that they're masked performers. They will not know, but we won't tell them, because they get very not they're reactive, they're not really thinking. So the reason why unhealthy, emotionally immature behavior seen on screen or out there is completely unimpressive, because as you get older, it's like Gargamel with the Smurfs. I'm just gonna let you know. So I've seen bountiful of people who look to TV, they tell me that it's true, reading books, that there's still monsters out there. I say, look, there's no monsters. There's actual human beings who need help. There's no demon. There's no Lucifer. I was raised with good Christian Catholic upbringing. They didn't tell me to believe in lies. So I'm just letting you know I'm a mystic also. So I have experiences. Just it's called imagination. No, it's not. It's more in depth than that. But anyways, these people don't listen to you. So again, 5D mystic here, spiritual, mindful mentor, content creator, podcast host. Let me tell you, enlightened ones aren't looking for this, because we are emotionally regulating our own nervous system, and our 14-month-old doesn't rule us. So we are wise adults, the prefrontal cortex. And that's why whatever liberates our spirit without also giving us mastery over ourselves is destructive. And when you see maskins, they follow each other around like Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, as they have likes and dislikes that they want win. The winner and the losers. I make fun of that. Loser. So I was a teenager once too. I only played the little sword game with my mouth once. I felt bad about it because it wasn't nice. And I also said, I'm not a coward. I can just tell you what I think in your face. Then I learned how sensitive people are, and now I just leave it alone, because a wise adult really doesn't want to say anything. It's unnecessary, as Bezel Vanderhoek point out. And please remember, I don't quote them. If I ever quote them, I'm quoting specifically, or sometimes I even forget to name them. But the point is, he mentions how you don't talk sense to anyone. I forget how I worded it. And so the example he gives is, you don't talk sense to somebody who's about to marry the wrong person. You're not going to have ego listen to you, because maskins are half-brained alone, and their 2-year-old came online, meaning the 2 is when the words start, and they are, it's a knee-jerk reaction. So I'm just saying, when they lack self-awareness, that's why I appreciate Therapy Nutshell Lady. She gives us a way to work with emotionally mature people. Then there's also other therapists. But in the meantime, when you are looking to healthy self-esteem, it's, I welcome kindness. Anything different is not welcome, but we don't respond with the same harshness, contempt, shame, grandiosity. Depends. Unhealthy self-soothing, unhealthy self-worth, they have this way of doing things. And it's sad that they don't actually notice it, because their body could use their support to be living that which is their best life ever. And good stress versus bad stress. Also, when you're smart, you don't make regrettable spiritual purchases. We're going to talk about that one tomorrow. This made me laugh. I'm like, oh, those who lack self-mastery do that. They have regrets because that's the part. You're not the master of who you are. You're not being yourself if you don't own all of the child parts that are yours. Wise adults know when our adapted child part comes in, when our wounded child comes in, so we're self-regulating in the moment, which is why nobody fucks with me, my biosphere. That's called you self-regulate. And your 0-1-year-old is all good. And so little did I know that I would be finding out so much depth to every person, and that's why there isn't a one size or one box fits all for emotional resilience skills. It's personal, because you're already doing the personal growth on purpose, and you're actually enjoying the emotional growth as well. Because feeling deeply is not something that takes away from you. Those of us who are vulnerable don't think of crying as courageous or strong. We find it funny that there are so many people out there who don't know how to do it. That's how I'm going to let you know. It's like a Zen master says, you got laundry. You just don't know how to cry in your 90 seconds because you haven't put into practice emotional resilience. Yet you want to use the word Zen. You're not Zen. I'm Zen inside, while I can be having a panic attack because I know, oh, look, I'm having a panic attack. I'm going to do the self-regulating thing, wait for it to pass. I get used to it, and there you go. You expand your window. Eventually it becomes just oh, look, I might be having a panic attack. It's still uncomfortable, but not as bad as when you first start having them. Those were horrible. And for all we know, it was my diet. I don't know, but the diet's going great. By the way, I'm going to have to bring you all for a walk soon. So time is slipping away for all of us at the same pace. You cannot manage time, but you can manage your energy. So yes, your energy, by the way, Purusha, pure consciousness, Prakriti, pure energy, the lovely life force, and the feminine, Prakriti, Shakti, Purusha, Shiva. I'm bringing it all in. You all know this. That's how I do it. I accept all, reject none. Anima Mundi. It's not confusing. They're all really going to say one thing, like Thomas Campbell points out. Love. Or as he says, truth is not fragile. Love is what is the optimization. And I forget how he explains it. He's a physicist, so he's a mathematician, I think. But all I can say is like, ha 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 ha, love wins. Because that's my sweet revenge. I sound like a 3-year-old. My 3-year-old, she actually, I think she's pretty much a bit of a ruler in my household, meaning here. But the teenager and the grown-up is actually really able to just have her come through. So every now and then I'm like, wow, look at me. The world doesn't revolve around you. No, it doesn't. But I can share my subjective reality, because that's the whole point. We're talking right now. But so yeah, this lovely man, whoever, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, I think he's a musician, right? Mozart, like a Mozart thing. I don't remember. I know I should know him, but see, this is why my brain draws blanks. But the greatest piece of folly is that every man thinks himself compelled to hand down what people think they have known. Now, it's nice to have libraries like our Akashic records, because it is nice. But what he's trying to point out is you don't have to regurgitate a bunch of, like that's not, and actually he's making a point. I think he knew about the now. So, and he also says, if you treat an individual as he is, he will remain how he is. But if you treat him as if he were what he ought to be and could be, he will become what he ought to be and could be. That's not actually 100% true, because if people don't heal that inner critic, and they don't actually heal that which is modeling what is shame, contempt, grandiosity, okay? So when someone doesn't actually learn to love themselves first and become a healthy self-esteem, with healthy self-soothing, with healthy self-empowering, with everything that is the firm kindness that those smart therapists talk about, it's unfortunate, because they continue to model that which they were taught. And so here's why it's always fascinating to learn from smart men. Give me a second. I wanted to share this one because I hadn't heard about it that way before, but there can be falsely empowered, grandiose people, and that actually is not positive, but it's not a result of shame. While there can be obviously disempowering, that's shame. So grandiosity and contempt, in a way of being like, I'm better than you kind of deal, even though there's different, Terrio has different unhealthy boundaries and whatnot, or however he words it. I thought that it was all connected to shame, is why I'm sharing it. Instead, when he's presenting in this class I took about false empowerment, I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I can understand that. So in those equations, they're modeling that which was taught to them, which is very different than you actively coming from a place of shame because you were made to feel one down versus you were made to notice or see or think that that's how people are supposed to be treated. And there's plenty of people out there who actually completely use stories in a way that is absurd. So I'm going to leave that one alone. But when I see adaptive child part people, they're unimpressive because they're bringing to the table their manners, their bad manners, their adaptive child part, which then becomes maladaptive, and they continue to support it. So when you see the ones who are against the modern day therapists, it's pretty straightforward because of how they wield their mouths. Modern day therapists are trying to prison you. How dare they talk about compassion for all? They literally are knee-jerk reactive to that which is kind firmness. That's pretty simple and straightforward. And the ones who are continuing with their story do not learn neuroscience, neurobiology, or basically say it's bullshit and they find the scientists that are on their side. Which is why it's unimpressive to meet those who are divisive this way, because if you're an intelligent mind, you don't divide and cherry pick the information. You see it all, you bring it in, and then you know that academics do this all the time. I'm an academic at heart. I just chose not to help people that way. I'm helping with self-agency, self-help, mentorship. But the point is, I find it humorous when someone's going to just give me one group and then another group. What I find even more humorous is when people are getting so stubborn in their buttholes, because the only time I ever even bothered trying to prove something this way was with my teenage boyfriend. When he said, you don't believe in God for real, it's just because you're afraid of death. And I was so angry at him. I was just like, no, because he was touching something very, very significantly important, which to this day, and I'm okay with being rejected. As someone pointed out, you're just going to have to accept that you're rejected, because when I told people I saw demonic possession, they looked at me like I was a whack job, and I'm like, it's not what I was asking. I said, science proves how the embodied brain works. God doesn't need science. Yes, I know that. You didn't hear what I just spoke. There's no demon possessing one of your brothers or sisters. I didn't say anymore because that's the moment of truth. You're not going to talk sense to somebody who's blah, 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 blah. That's all I'm doing too, blah, 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 blah. So you leave it alone because, again, it's just not worth the time. High priestesses learn to shut it because at a certain point you just recognize the five hands of those who don't want to utilize the wise adults. They would rather live that which is their adaptive child. And so the adaptive child, it's a 0-8-year-old non-metabolized trauma time, like my facade friend, shit comes up. We don't do tit for tat because that's bullshit. But we do have a don't fuck with me, don't fuck with my biosphere, thanks to our emotional resilience work. So you know how to self-regulate in your ventral vagal state, and you reframe things by remembering that your ability to love is unlimited. When you become love, you can hold the whole universe in your love. Thank you, Sadhguru. But also that you only have 24 hours. And to accept and respect and love someone for just the way they are is actually one of God's, his child, Jesus. Forgive, for they do not know. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. Turn the other cheek. Don't cast a stone. Don't play God. It's very basic, the Holy Trinity. Stay heart open. So whenever someone's wanting to blame Lucifer for something, I'm like, yeah, no, he doesn't exist. He actually didn't exist by the time I was 20. And at that point, I was a little bit afraid. And I said, I'll take responsibility for what I'm speaking to, but I don't see him. I just see cowards. And I see cloak people hurting children and physically humans and all of this, and it's not making sense how they can't represent you. They can't because they're physically hurting human beings, and nobody's above the law. The laws exist for those who don't have the belief. Nobody is going to be in the medieval times, or maybe, wait a minute. So again, it's quite unimpressive to see that people think that God would want his children who learned how to get out of the cave, who learned how to get out of, a wheel. Like, these are for people who are at this point in a society that talks about academia or at least wants to talk about advancing. And so, yes, I find hypocrisy quite humorous at this point. 45.0 version. Mediocre is not dangerous, Dan Martell. It's simply obvious. to those who are not going to bring in mediocre, because the A game of every human being on the face of this planet is to be emotionally intelligent. They don't want it, they don't have to have it. I mean, they can continue to believe and cherry pick and ignore that. That's a smart brain will be like, yes, keep cherry picking, please. I'll be made fun of by all the scientists in the room, because that's how a smart brain will work. Of they have proof, like tangible. You have belief, sure. You have your scientists who are not working with their, colleagues. Like, so anytime someone's gonna come to I can be made crapped on for real by who knows how many smart academics. I've seen it. I'm good with that. I chose not to do argumentation on purpose. Like, that's the point, So I still will take them every day. They are why we're here. Researchers, the quantitative data people, the ones who spread lies and rumors. You got someone thinking that yoga brings demons out of you because they're ignorant. Nothing is more terrible than to see ignorance in action and actively see people who don't notice Peter Levine, who mentions bones, muscles, tissues, trauma charges are stored in it. Those who mention mindfulness, no, it's not for everybody, because if your body still has not the capacity to self-regulate, no, they're trying to imprison us with the word anxiety, depression, and talking about mental health. They're trying to make us soft by talking to us about how to, it's hilarious. I didn't have all of the information settled in. Now that I do, I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what, 3D, 4D, have a good time. Continuing to hang around, and because the knee-jerk reaction will automatically, dum-dum. Yes, I'm a dum-dum. I got a brain that falls out of my asshole every day now. The one thing that the left brain by itself can't stand is those of us who have two sides working, because we'll begin to present a lovely rose or something. And they're not doing it on purpose. The few times this again has happened was when I was a teenager. I didn't realize why this was such a big deal. I'm like, we're not proving stuff. So with the teenage boyfriend, that was a different story, because he's trying to tell me what I believe in. No, I believe in God. I know why. And, he doesn't know about all the mystic stuff, because we don't have chit-chatting basis. But what every human being needs is not tolerance or compassion, but acceptance and respect. And I do believe that if you treat an individual as he is, he will remain how he is. So yes, you don't want to treat an adaptive child part as that, because really it's their maladaptive patterns of behavior at that point. It's like my facade friend. If I wanted to treat him the way he had treated me, I would not have, when he needed me, become friends again. I would not have learned how, okay, he's insecure. His assholishness comes from complete fear of rejection. When I met it again, his little timber, I recognized it immediately. I was like, okay, I know what I'm dealing with, but I didn't have attachment trauma education. And so that wasn't registering with the same awareness. Today I can say I'm so happy that, but if you treat him as if he were what he ought to be and could be, he will become what he ought to be and could be. That's not true. That's not necessarily true. I'm meaningless to a person who chooses to disregard maladaptive patterns of behavior. So when people are emotionally immature, they have unhealthy self-soothing mechanisms. They have unhealthy a lot of things, and they disregard. Doesn't matter. That's why kind compassion and kind firmness work really wonders. When people think it doesn't, the only reason is because they were modeled that which was unimpressive stuff. And so it's not a certainty, which is why Robert Sapolsky with his book Determined might be accurate. But that doesn't mean you do unto others that which was done unto them, let alone you do unto others that which they do to you. Tit for tat is not anything impressive. Again, as a kid, I played the sword game once. I said, I'm sorry, God, that felt shitty. That's how sense of self works when you have it whole and we say, I don't want to be unkind to someone who's unkind, close my heart and do what? Be an asshole like you? No, I'd rather just not do any of it. And by the way, tell you in your face. Facade friend, 2 days I sat him down. 2 days. 3 years down the line, still pretending. Adaptive child part people, if they don't notice, they don't bring forth their wise adult. They're not in their prefrontal. So it's a knee-jerk reaction, which is why they're not consciously choosing. I noticed that when I'm yelling my friend in the car, and then I noticed again in other circumstances. So you definitely have people who aren't there for you and who are not interacting with you. Whatever unfinished business, first 3 years of life are implicit memory. So it's actually something that doesn't piss me off Those who want to think of the world as unfair or correct each other, they're all full of contempt, self-righteousness. Those of us who are wise adults know, I didn't walk one day in your shoes. Obviously, for your maladaptive patterns of behavior to be still here, there's an answer, and I don't need to be pointing it out, as that's rude manners, because that's very rude manners to point out something that's so obvious. If only people follow the smart therapists, but they will like to follow the ones who tell them that the modern day therapists are wrong and that they're off and that there's no way in hell that they should be loving and kind to all. It's pretty straightforward. So 4D, again, unimpressive. 3D, anything you respond to willingly becomes yours. If you consciously respond to everything you come in touch with, the entire universe becomes yours. And that's also why it's really fun to be one with that, which is Akash Source Anima Mundi, in communion with God. And it's not a race. The scientist, again, that Thomas Campbell, he's amazing. It's a choice. You get the free will choice, or if the determined wants to be right, it doesn't really matter. You will get to either become emotionally resilient, therefore emotionally mature, intelligent, which means that you have self-esteem, you have motivation to bring your A game. In fact, what we do is that we know humanity has infinite potential. So you bring forth that which the future generations can look to. And that's why it's really unimpressive to see the continuation of that which is a low frequency. However, those who suffer in a specific way, if they choose to continue with their dark sides of neuroplasticity, it's very straightforward that they are choosing to commit to that which they began their life with. The first 3 years are implicit. So if you don't notice your knee-jerk reactions and you continue to allow low self-esteem, indirect communication, passive-aggressive, Diego's family, the Ice Age, or Cusco's attitude, emotionally mature people always have kind, because we also don't need firmness. But above all, if you're building emotional resilience, it's because you love learning more about yourself. So we like to be our wise adults. You like to be the humble timber. God is discerning, equanimous love. If you haven't read my chapter, it's a small one. The Ways to God is the book I'm a co-author of. But here's Sadhguru again. When people give advice, always look at whether it has worked for them. So when you meet wellness industry, those who are professionals, those who are in the mental fitness as a lifestyle, intentional living, they will completely be able to say, yes, we have feels, we know all about it, and we also have flaws, imperfections. You better bet I got knee-jerk reactions too. But the point is, we work with them, we don't justify them, we don't want to continue bringing them, because, you know, it's fun to be an actual healthy self-worth person who will want to engage with firm kindness. That's with intellect, that's with all conversations. And so the inner growth mindset, when we look at things and when we're working with the emotions, I'm going to create a number of different paid podcasts in our Spotify and Patreon, and then I'm going to evaluate what types of workshops and things that we can come together, like little circles, like meetups and stuff like that, because we have our 8th and 9th chakra for mystics and spiritual ones. But when it comes to words, so I know that there are concepts and words that I can still get emotionally charged at. So for example, that creates a really good exercise for one to do, not only with self-reflection, awareness in the moment, but in the moment that can be also a little bit hard. So it's good because you're probably going to do it if you do enjoy emotional resilience. I know I do. I can spot myself as I'm being pointed out. You're getting charged. You're getting like, what's the deal? And then playing it out though, and journaling about it, understanding what the charge is about. That's how you get to move into. So that's why it's fun. Mindful mindset stuff for those of us who enjoy it, obviously. The ones who are selling it like this, fashionable skill. Yes. Managers who are smart, it's amazing. There's not many that are out there. We want more of them. I hear of horrendous shit managers. They're all needing help. They're all the ones who lack the capacity to notice their knee-jerk reaction and the mustard on their fucking chin. I'm so happy that I'm a solopreneur, because seriously, the stories I hear, I'm like, what the fuck? So there's amazing entrepreneurs out there. I know, like Dan Martell, I love the man, as he points out, mediocre people. He says they're dangerous. For me, no, they're not dangerous. They're just mediocre. We know who they are. We're not going to replicate them. That's why you don't do tit for tat. Gary Vee, I love. His authenticity is off the charts. He also knows about soft skills like the back of his hand, and he's amazing as he continues to move into the future. And so when you meet those who know what they're talking about in a way of being the wise adults, it's just fun to get to see that. When you meet the ones who are with, crap situations, you think, okay, we need to get more people to understand. It's very grounded in reality. Emotionally mature, intelligent people. It's called kind firmness. It's actually called funny bone. And because we self-regulate, it's not a big deal if somebody is going to be biologically rude because they didn't choose it. But you definitely won't be interacting with them. So every body is different. For me, if someone begins to get in their anger, my body's small. The point is, I wouldn't want to do it any differently. When it comes to maladaptive behaviors and people who engage with knee-jerk reactions, with phrases, whatever it is, I'm not going to waste my time doing anything. And that's, again, a choice. And that's the part of where it's more of, there's no need if there's no physical threat. Everybody has their scale of things, but the opportunity to be able to treat the person the way they ought to be treated. And so here's where, by being able to respect, accept somebody and their manners, by being able to share with them you are loved unconditionally, that's exactly why some of us are in communion again. God, Akash, source. So if you want to talk to me about spirituality, then it is to turn the other way. It is to live a life of meaning and connection beyond the solo self. It means you have emotional mastery, to put it in human terms. It means you own the sense of self. You're an adult, a wise adult. So when you see the ones who are choosing sides and still using heroes and villains, that automatically tells me, especially when they're just saying, it's my one box, this is the truth, this is the one way, you are honing in on something very rigidly. I have an adaptive child part. I have a black and white thinker. It's bad or good. It's in two ways. You cherry pick what you like. What you don't like, you're reactive. That's it. I don't have a conversation. Tell me what you think. Excuse, you're confusing science spirituality. I had fun with it because I'm not insecure. And so when someone's coming in, it doesn't matter if they want to prove something. I'm not proving. I'm not in school. That's the only place I would prove something. Teenage boyfriend, the only person I had a conversation with where I'm like, I can't prove it to you. Even if I took my heart out of my chest, you wouldn't know. It's a muscle. So it's wasting my time. The minute you will unsee me because you've decided you know me better, the minute you will have disregarded how you will have talked to me, how you will have treated all of it, I don't need to address your biological rudeness. I'm already aware of exactly how many of people are out there. My facade friend, again, it's not impressive and it's boring to have to deal with it because, by the way, not just my facade friend, so many other emotionally immature individuals who, and Terry Real, I love it. He talks about this in a most amazing of way. There's two words. We'll talk about it tomorrow. That way I can organize my notes. But it was something about transference and receptivity. So I don't do let me see if you're going to you're going to show me every 24 hours what you are, because we're creatures of habit. So the people that I have as stories, I love them to death. But yeah, they're definitely, the minute someone is choosing to behave in ways, I can get moody if I want, but I'm a grown up, so I know how to self-regulate. I know how to recalibrate. And that's that window welcome that you have. So emotional resilience, really fun, maturity, mastery, being yourself, and that's the smart way. Stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable. When we're dealing with the mass performers, it's okay. Like my facade friend, that's who they are. Like Gargamel, they're really, they're really cool. They do the best they can. We all do. So we'll be back with more. Have a good one.